Imagine being face to face with an angry grizzly bear, with nothing but a small pocket knife to defend yourself. This was the reality for Colin Dowler, an adventurous man who found himself in a life-threatening situation. Colin Dowler had always been drawn to physical challenges and outdoor activities, but nothing could prepare him for the day that led him to a life-threatening encounter with one of nature's most fearsome predators, a grizzly bear. What would you do if you were attacked by a grizzly bear? Could you survive with just a pocket knife? As Colin's 45th birthday approached in July 2019, he eagerly anticipated a much-needed break from his job in Vancouver. His plans to scale Mount Dowler had been in the works for some time, and he and his brother Paul were finally going to make it happen. Located in the Pacific Ranges of southwestern British Columbia, Canada, Mount Dowler rises to about 6,500 feet and boasts a distinctive shape resembling a cowboy hat or a dog's tooth. However, this mountain held a special meaning for Colin and his brother Paul beyond its unique appearance. The peak had been named in honor of their late grandfather, but surprisingly, no one in their family had ever reached the summit. Colin was determined to change that. On July 28, 2019, he bid farewell to his wife and daughter and embarked on his scouting mission. No stranger to solo adventures, Colin was equipped with a handheld GPS, a bivy sack, hiking poles, and a 3-inch pocket knife gifted to him by his father. Setting out early at 7 a.m., he arrived at Ramsey Arm, an inlet on the mainland accessible only by boat. Spotting a nearby logging camp, Colin decided to make a quick stop to alert the workers of his presence and to gather any last-minute advice before heading up the mountain. It was at the logging camp that Colin crossed paths with Vito John Andrea, the camp cook, who offered him a can of bear spray and a ride closer to the inland. After bidding farewell to Vito, Colin set off on his trusted mountain bike, blazing a trail through the rugged backcountry and marking his path with ribbons. However, he soon discovered that the bear spray canister he had been given was missing from his pocket. Knowing he was in bear country, Colin wasted no time in finding a safe spot to camp for the night, carefully hanging his food and clothes in a nearby tree to keep them out of reach of any curious bears. The next day, he continued his scouting mission, but as he made his way down the mountain, he searched in vain for the missing bear spray canister. Despite this setback, Colin was determined to press on without the added layer of protection. Despite hoping for a safe journey without any close encounters, fate had other plans for Colin. As he made his way down the mountain on his bike, Colin spotted a marker indicating that the logging camp was just 4 miles away. He pedaled on, passing the marker when suddenly he spotted a male grizzly bear curiously observing him. Colin froze, terrified, trying to figure out how to avoid a confrontation with the imposing predator. However, as the grizzly drew closer to within 100 feet, Colin realized the situation was dire and the bear was too close for comfort. Colin Dowler's heart raced as he faced off with a male grizzly. He knew he had to act fast to avoid a deadly encounter, but what could he do? Turning his back was not an option, and the bear was getting dangerously close. As he desperately tried to come up with a plan, he resorted to talking loudly to the bear. But before he could make a move, the grizzly started to walk toward him, and Colin's worst fears began to materialize. He was starting to panic, despite knowing that unprovoked bear attacks are rare. The situation was escalating quickly. Dowler had done nothing to provoke the grizzly, but he continued to approach him. Dowler got off his bike and used it as a barrier between himself and the animal. He even grabbed one of his hiking poles for added protection. But as the bear passed by him, Dowler let his guard down, only for the bear to stop, turn around, and stare right at him. The bear's massive head and size were even more intimidating up close. Dowler tried to defend himself by raising his hiking pole and using it to poke the bear's head, hoping to deter the animal. It initially worked, but unfortunately the pole slipped, and the grizzly became more agitated. The bear bit down on the pole and engaged in a tug-of-war with Dowler. Suddenly, the grizzly lunged forward and bit Dowler's abdomen and back. It was a strange sensation, and he felt his hot blood pouring out. The bear then lifted Dowler like a rag doll and carried him to a ditch on the side of the road about 50 feet away. The animal continued its attack, biting Dowler's arm, abdomen, and back again. In a desperate attempt to defend himself, Dowler tried to gouge the animal's eyes with his fingers, but unfortunately he was unsuccessful. Further enraged, the grizzly swung Colin Dowler around and bit down hard on his left leg, then repeated the attack multiple times. Dowler knew he had to act fast to survive and not leave his family alone. He summoned all his courage and tried to pry the animal's jaws open, but to no avail. He then remembered the 3-inch knife in his pocket and screamed in agony. Finally, he managed to retrieve the knife and open the blade, driven by adrenaline and the desire to live. Dowler thrust the knife into the bear's neck with all his might. The animal stumbled back, surprised by the sudden attack. Dowler felt a surge of relief as he saw the bear retreat into the forest. With trembling hands, he tore off a piece of his shirt and tied it tightly around his injured leg. Determined to survive, he mounted his bike and started pedaling toward the logging camp. Despite the pain and weakness, Dowler refused to give up. He fell once, but he picked himself up and continued riding. After half an hour of intense struggle, he finally reached the camp. The logging crew, which included the camp cook Vito, that had previously given Dowler a can of bear spray and a ride, all knew first aid and worked together to save the man's life. The combined efforts of the workers were crucial in Dowler's survival. The air ambulance arrived after 40 minutes and rescued Dowler. He underwent a 6.5-hour surgery and received 200 staples and stitches. Although his recovery was slow, it was promising. 2 years after the attack in 2021, Dowler gave an interview where he said his physical recovery was still ongoing. He added, "I choose to focus on the awesomeness of the event and how I survived it. I'm comfortable being the badass dude that took on a grizzly bear with a pocket knife and won." In the end, Colin Dowler's harrowing encounter with a grizzly bear became a story of courage, resilience, and survival. Despite the pain and trauma, Dowler emerged from the incident as a symbol of human grit and determination. His unwavering spirit in the face of danger reminds us that even amid the darkest moments, there is always a glimmer of hope.